Hey folks, welcome back to another video. Join me up here in the attic below my fingerboard and training board so you can guess what kind of theme this video is going to have. As if you need to guess any, you've already seen a title, haven't you? I don't know why I say these things really. You'll have to forgive me sweating a bit or looking a bit rosy. It is roasting up in my attic. The window is wide open. I need to get a fan, I haven't got one. I thought I'd talk about this kind of training stuff, partly because I've just sort of completed a few blocks of my training. I kind of do 4-week training blocks and then have a week off, and because I'd done 3 blocks and I had 2 weeks off, and now it's time for me to get back into it. And it's a tough time of year. Busy with work. It's been a bit funny this year for obvious reasons, but busy with work and nice weather generally. It's been horrible today, but nice weather generally. Nice long evenings still, so we can get climbing after work. It's easy to kind of neglect training because climbing out there is the main event. It has to be. That's what we're all here for, isn't it? Is to go climbing outdoors. But we put a lot of effort into training, and I think it's nice to kind of keep it ticking over throughout the year. Now, I'm probably a bit different to most in that because I spend my winter in Spain. I spent 3 months there. That's always the main event of the year. I almost look at it like any climbing throughout the year, because I'm just so busy, is like bonus climbing. I do get out loads, but I don't have the chance to do, those 3 days on, 1 day off kind of thing that I do throughout the winter. So for me, it's really important that training happens throughout the year, and invariably it'll slip at times, and you've got to be okay with that, haven't you? There's other pressures, like I say, work, climbing, family, just general life. But I wanted to talk about briefly just using the fingerboard to kind of keep ticking over, right? Before we think about fingerboarding, I'm not going to go through this, but you've got to warm up. You must warm up. Fingerboarding is just really intense. So the workout I'll show you on the fingerboard that I'll talk about, it will take you about 20 minutes. But the actual warm up is probably going to take you, I reckon it's got to be half an hour before you can actually do the main event on that. First thing you need to do, a bit of cardio, get the pulse going, whether that's star jumps in your living room, a little run around the block, a cycle to the wall, or whatever it might be, something to get the cardio going. And then I want to start working the muscles a little bit, so I'll do some sit-ups, I'll do some press-ups, that kind of thing. Sets, for me, 25, 30 press-ups, depends what mood I'm in, and about 6 sets of that to give you an idea of how many sets I would recommend. I want to do some Theraband stretching, so just one of these. They're worth their weight in gold, and they're really light. You buy them on Amazon. You can do all sorts of things with them that protect the rotator cuffs, and again gets the muscles going and everything, and a bit of sort of dynamic stretching. Resistance bands, Theraband's really useful. One I particularly like is when I'm warming up the fingers, I'll do a slightly antagonistic thing. Just feel it helps my tendons. I really like that one. I'll get the squeezy ball out. There's cheaper versions of this. This is a Metolius one. They're quite expensive for what they are. You can just buy rubber rings on eBay for like 2 or 3 quid or something. But just squeeze, and I'll do 3 fingers, 2 fingers, 4 fingers, whatever, and onto the thumb, just to get things going a bit. Once I've kind of warmed up the big muscles, I'll start doing some hanging, and I tend to do this on my little bouldering wall here, but you can do it on the board just as easily. This is the main event hold for most fingerboarding. It's a 20mm X, right? But I'm not going to go straight on that. I'm going to use the bigger hold. So for me, I might use this one, which is about 35mm, I think. If that's too small though, just go up to the big jugs. I can't really use the big jugs on this one because of where I've put it, but they're big enough you get the idea. And I can just pull on those. I'm not doing anything timing wise yet. I'm just feeling, hear that creaking, it will stay up. I'm just trying to get the muscles working a bit, so I'll just go on for a few seconds. And one thing I like to do is like shoulder shrugs. So I'll just sink into that a bit and I'll just pull up. I'm not doing the whole range of pull-ups, I'm just moving around. So I'm engaging the shoulders and the elbows and everything. That's key to get the specific muscles and joints warmed up, right? The next thing I'll do is talk about form a little bit, right? Ignore my fingers for the moment, just going to put those in the big hole. I'm kneeling down here because I haven't got a lot of head space in here. But what I'm trying to do is engage my shoulders and engage my elbows, right? So for me, I just sort of sink into a bit, and I engage the shoulders, and you can see I've just got a little bit of bend in the elbows, right? I'm not hanging with straight arms and unengaged shoulders. If I do that and I end up with my shoulders up around my ears like that, you're just asking for an injury. So instead of doing that with my shoulders, just pull up a little bit into it and imagine that you've got a tennis ball between your shoulder blades and try and hold it there. It's just giving you better form, which will help prevent injuries. I'm not saying you'll never get injured just because you do that, but it will certainly help. So that's sort of shoulder elbow form, that kind of thing. Finger form is key. What I don't want to do is I don't want to train in a full crimp. The tape stops you getting to full crimp a little bit, but you can see with that one the sort of the upward bend of the fingers. It's really intense on your fingers. If you're watching this as an advanced person, you'll know this already, but you might want to train crimped at some point, but you need to be at quite a high level to make it worthwhile, and your tendons need to be, sufficiently trained to put up with it, basically. So I would completely avoid, as a beginner to intermediate person, doing a full crimp. Bearing in mind I've got to like 8A-ish, I've never trained full crimp on a fingerboard. What I don't want to do either is do like the full drag where you're just like that. I'd rather have some engagement in there, partly for injury prevention again, and partly because that kind of relies more on friction rather than actual strength. So you want to go into the half crimped position. Now you can see your little finger, everyone's fingers are different, remember this for a start, but your little finger is going to be hard for that to keep up with those three being straight like that. The little finger kind of can't be, otherwise it'll fall off there. Otherwise the others have to go into more of a crimp position. So half crimp like that, flat fingers as much as possible, okay? So which hold are you going to use for this training, right? I said that 20mm one, which that roughly is the ideal one, because it's kind of more or less one pad of your finger, so it relies on some strength. If you can't manage the 20mm though, fine. What I'd recommend is not pulleys. Personally, I'm not really a fan of pulleys. They do work really well, just find them a bit faffy, so don't watch this and go, oh, he's chatting rubbish because he said don't use pulleys. If you want to use a pulley, use a pulley. I'm not going to talk about it now. What I'd rather do for a beginner type person is actually just go up a hold size instead. So if you can't do the 20, try the big 30 or whatever this is, but try and maintain that finger form like that, okay? So you're not just dragging over the edges, but you are doing that finger position I talked about and really pulling down on that edge. If you can't manage the 30, go up to the big jugs, fine, that's great, use them. When you can progress from the big jugs, progress in little stages. Can you do a big jug on one side, yeah, and then the 30 in the other? Every time you change the grip type as well, so you're swapping, so you're working both equally. Eventually that'll become easy enough to do the big hold and then the little holds, so you can just offset them a bit. Okay, so on to the main event at last. I just think it's really important to just stress the warming up and the form element to this. But the repeater session itself, whatever edge you're going to use, as we've just discussed, 7 seconds on, 3 seconds off. So that means you hang for 7 seconds, you have 3 seconds letting go, you get back on, 7, 3. You're going to do that for 6 reps. So 7 seconds on, 3 seconds off, times 6, and then after that have 3 minutes rest, okay? You're going to do that whole process 6 times. You're going to do 6 sets of 6 reps with the 3 minutes rest after each set, okay? If you, let's say you can do the 20 and you're going to do it all on that 20mm edge, but you're halfway through the routine and you're failing repeatedly, just go up a hold size, right? And just try it that way. Your first sessions will probably be either too easy or too hard. It takes some time to get it right. Over time though, just work towards going to that 20mm edge. What we're aiming for is getting close to failure on the last rep of the last couple of sets, something like that, okay? So just, you want to be working hard basically is the key, but we don't want to be failing midway through sets. If you're doing that, you're making it too hard, just use a bigger hold, okay? There's lots of ways of tweaking this in terms of upping the number of reps, upping the number of sets, lowering the rest. Adding weight, it's a really complex subject if you want it to be. If you don't want it to be, just stick to that routine that I've given you there. It will work, it will have some benefit, all right? Remembering that the level I'm aiming this at is not your super advanced climber. They're going to be adding weight and stuff like that and using different edges, etc., etc. This is a massive subject, so it could easily be a much longer video, and actually realistically a much longer set of videos. So this is just a repeater one to keep you ticking over throughout the year when you're actually going and doing that real climbing as well. It will help keep your strength up a bit, help keep your power endurance up a bit. And actually when you're on a route and you've been doing some of this and you're on what you think is a small hold, your brain just goes, well, I can hang a 20mm edge for, you know, my 7 on 3 off comfortably kind of thing. So you can just relax a bit more on the route. And instead of fighting for that right nut to go in and rushing and getting the wrong one, you're just pretty chilled and you can get it in. Or if you're on that red point on a sport route, you'll rest on holds that are much smaller than you used to do if you do some fingerboarding, I reckon. So it's really worth doing. So that routine, if you can do like 1 or 2 sessions a week, it's going to be so beneficial. You don't have to. You can still get better at climbing just by climbing. You know, the psychology aspect of it, you get more confident climbing above gear, you get quicker at placing gear, your endurance probably goes up just by spending time on the rock. But what doesn't go up generally is strength for sure. And often, unless you're doing lots of bouldering or hard climbing for you, like really hard climbing for you, you tend to lose some sort of power endurance and power as well, I think, in my experience. It depends what climbing you're doing, but like I say, it's just an option to top it all up. 20 minutes on that plus half an hour warming up maybe, so it's less than an hour. Can you do that? Hey, I know there's a lot of pressures on time in life, isn't there? Work, actual climbing, family, kids, all sorts of things. So you don't have to do these things, but if you can, it's better than watching loads of Netflix. But you know, the best thing about training is you can watch Netflix and stuff at the same time. My TV's just over there, so it's nice to get some peace and quiet away from the dog and stuff and watch TV and train at the same time, winning. Please do fire away with any questions if you've got some. Remember, just take this kind of video as it's intended. It is intended for beginner type people, or just pushing the intermediate. It's not for advanced people. There's more to talk about. Like I say, it could be masses of videos, this lot. Find us on Insta, find us on Facebook, give us a like and a follow on there, it's massively appreciated. Do click that like button, smash the subscribe button. We've got over 2,000 subscribers on this page. Absolute madness, I'd never have expected that, so thanks to you if you're watching and if you've subscribed and everything. I hope you've enjoyed this videos, more videos coming up very soon.